welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On this show, we talk about self-care that is not what you'd usually consider to be self-care. We don't talk about how to get pedicures and manicures. We don't talk about how to book yourself a massage. We don't usually even talk about nutrition or hydration or that kind of thing. We talk about self-care that takes courage. Although I admit it can take courage to book time for a massage, absolutely. But this is self-care where we're talking about going deep on the inside, where it can be, well, it almost always is uncomfortable. And we do that because true self-care does take courage, and it is the self-care that leads to significant transformation. You start to notice that you're showing up differently in life, and you often need a guide for that because we don't know what we don't know. And so I've been deeply studying self-care for the last, 10 years and have figured out a thing or two about how it works and how it doesn't work. So I'm going to be one of your guides today, and I love to have guests on the show who can also help you out and give their perspective. So today I have with me Julie Murrell. Julie, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. So Julie, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you are up to these days.
Again, my name's Julie, and I am a certified image consultant. And so I know that the area of image consulting is misunderstood, and there's a lot of different ideas around what it is. But what it actually is about developing confidence. Because confidence truly comes from having a well-developed image of who you are, a mental picture of who you are, and an understanding of your skills, strengths, talents, and values, and being able to communicate those visually so that the way you're showing up is authentic to who you are and is also something that can be recognized the minute someone sees you. Before you even open your mouth, it's already saying something about who you are. So you get to control that. You get to make sure it is something that is effective and is real to you. You don't have to, leave it to other people's interpretations for them to make their judgments of you. You get to control it.
That is so fascinating, and it sounds a lot like courageous self-care to me, like the confidence and self-expression and having a deep sense and understanding of who you are. That is exactly what I like to share with people, so it feels like it is in perfect alignment. Absolutely. And
Absolutely.
I can totally relate to what you're saying, because when I was growing up, I had an idea of what I wanted to dress like, but I was too timid to dress that way. Like junior high, high school, there's a lot of judgment and criticism going around and not a whole lot of self-confidence. And once I started actually doing personal development, people started, I started dressing differently. I found that I had the courage to do it, to have a true reflection of who I am. And it was much more artistic than the person that I used to convey when I dressed. And I started getting all sorts of compliments like, "Oh my gosh, are you an artist?" And I'd be like, "No, but I love beautiful things."
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so true. It is such a form of self-expression, and it's such a form of self-care. And it's so true that it's easy to play small because of, beliefs that you're not worth wearing the lipstick, or you're too much by wearing the high heels, or that you want to blend in because you think you don't know who you are, what you want to say, or you don't know how to portray who you really are. And it's when you do have that ability to express yourself through the way that you present yourself and the way that you dress, and you don't have to feel small or feel like you have to dull your radiance. What comes from it is just magical. It's amazing.
Yes, I totally agree. And then it's fun to get dressed in the morning, and it's fun to put outfits together and go shopping. And
yes,
I love doing that.
Me too. But not everyone does.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I don't understand, but we're different. I can accept that. So, Julie, I love to get guests on the show to share their current favorite self-care practice. And the reason that I like to do that is because self-care is such a personal thing. And often we're told what we should do for self-care. And sometimes we discover, oh, yeah, I love doing that. Or other times, like, oh, that is not self-care to me at all. So I'm curious to hear what you're doing for courageous self-care these days.
Yes, I love that. I do a lot of personal development, and I guess I started doing it before I knew that that was what I was doing, and taking care of myself. But um, I do things that feed my soul, and that, you know, that I can pull strength from. And those biggest things for me right now are listening to podcasts and videos and music and interviews that really speak to me and resonate with me, and shape the way I either see myself or change my perspective of something to, you know, a bigger, more empowering vision.
Yeah, I love the idea, or the saying that one new idea can change your life. And it's
Yeah.
so true. Like
Yes.
sometimes people just say one thing and I've had a complete paradigm shift. And it
Yes.
so totally changes and shifts how I show up in the world. So I love that you're doing that. And I love that you consider that to be self-care.
Oh, hugely, hugely. Some of my favorites, I've always loved Oprah.
Yes.
She is like my soul food mother.
Yes.
And I just love listening to usually her YouTube videos, recordings of Super Soul Sunday, or interviews that she has with different people. And so many of my my ideas and my favorite quotes come from her. I also am loving Marie Forleo lately. Her messaging just resonates so much with me and makes me feel good. I have my go-to playlist on YouTube for music that I listen to. One of my favorite songs is Am I Wrong by Nico and Vince, which is all about following your path, even though it might kind of go astray from the norm, and that you just have to live your truth. I just love that song.
I don't know it. So now I'm going to get that link and listen to it.
It's so good.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Awesome. And so you already answered my next question, which was share some of your favorite, what you're listening to these days. So thank you for thinking ahead. And I resonate with the following a path that's unusual and not necessarily socially acceptable, especially by the previous generations. So I know what you've been up to, but our listeners don't. So what's different about the path that you're on from the standard?
I would say that I'm not just settling for the circumstances that are easy for me. I mean, when I graduated university, most of my classmates went and started working at a job in Calgary. And in my last year of university, that just didn't feel right. I feel like I needed more, like there was something more for me to pursue. And I ended up getting a job teaching English in France. And I had no teaching experience at all. And I had been to Europe one time, but not France. And I just kind of went for it. And I learned that I love teaching. I learned so much about myself. I got to live in France. It was an amazing experience. And I've just realized that the way to follow my heart and to follow my path is by paying attention to what feels right, and when I feel drawn to something bigger or different. And specifically how that relates to my life right now is building this business. I am still, doing other work on the side, a multi-dimensional approach to my business development, if you want to say. And then just committing the time outside of that to build on what I actually want. And, reaching out to people, setting up appointments outside of business hours to find opportunities, getting up extra early so that I can have an extra hour in the morning to really visualize where I see myself going, and to work on reaching the people that I'm trying to reach and figuring out how to reach them and how I can serve them, which I know from speaking with people, their lifestyle is very different, because they will, work towards a stable career, which is totally great. And if that's what you want to do, I think that's so important that you do that. But I just create my life so that I'm doing things to build more outside of what I'm doing to support myself right now. That's my vision.
Sounds like adventure is more important to you than stability.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to say it. Yes.
Yeah, well, I know that because I think I'm the same way.
Yes.
Very high risk tolerance.
Yeah, it's weird though. It doesn't feel like risk in some strange way. Like, even though it's, I guess you could say it's not the most conventional stability, I still feel safe. It's not like, I'm putting everything on the line. It's just because I know this is what I need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to pause here for just a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get into your story of courage. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. So the other thing I love to do, moving into part 2 of the interview, is to get you to share your story of courage. And before you do that, I'll just explain to the listeners, if this is your first time, or if it's not, we all can hear this over and over until it sinks in, that it's so useful and valuable to hear other people's stories of courage, because we all live with fear, and people have different bandwidths of how much courage they are willing to implement at various times in their lives. But courage is contagious, as Brene Brown says, and everyone has some courage. And it's something that if we continue to grow and expand our capacity for courage, it completely changes our lives, and we get what we're ready for. So if something shows up in our life and we have fear around it, it's showing up at that time because we are ready for it. And that's the next step to moving into the life that we are wanting to live. And so it's valuable to hear other people's stories of courage, because either they're so different from ours that we can say, oh my gosh, that has never happened to me, but that's fascinating. Or they're so similar that we can go, well, if that, I call it the Yahoo theory. I learned it from an Olympic athlete. I don't call it that. He called it that, and I'm stealing it. It's called the Yahoo theory, and it goes, if that Yahoo can do it, so can I. I'm very interested in hearing your story of courage today.
Yeah. Oh, so definitely courage is something that I've cultivated over time. It took a lot of courage to accept the job. Well, no, I was happy to accept the job in France, but it took a lot of courage to move over there on my own, to be on a team with other teachers that I didn't know. I didn't know if we like each other. I don't know if we get along. I didn't know how to do the job. I didn't know any of that. So I've definitely learned to take that feeling of fear and turn it into something greater for myself. But I would say that on a daily basis, my story of courage is just overcoming the limiting beliefs that are always playing in my head. And I've identified two very specific ones that are kind of a theme in my life. And one of those limiting beliefs is that I'm not worthy, whether it's of asking for what I need or talking to that person, or I'm worthy of accepting love from someone. And the other is the belief that I don't know, and feeling like I don't know how to, do this thing on technology, or I don't know how to build a business, or I don't know how to film a video. All of that can be super debilitating, and I've noticed how it's impacted me. And so I guess that my biggest lesson from all of that is just to show up. I have had to learn to force myself to show up, to, go to, when I first moved home, I was super excited about the new skills that I learned, and having just completed my image consulting diploma. And I thought everyone was going to be so excited about it, as passionate about it as I am. And when that didn't happen, it was a huge hit to all of my limiting beliefs that I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm not worthy of talking about what I'm passionate about, and that I'm not credible enough, and that, who am I to be doing this and giving this presentation, or, talking to this person. And over time, it showed up over and over again when I would go volunteer. I was afraid of going to volunteer because I felt alone. When I would arrange to do a presentation, I was afraid of going to give the presentation because I didn't feel like I had the credibility. It took a lot of practice, just showing up, even though I was afraid, even though I had these beliefs that I'm not worthy, and that I don't know, and that I don't have the credibility, and doing it anyways. And I'd say that over the last couple of years, I have grown, and I would say that I'm proud that I've lived what I teach and what I want for others, because I think it's so important to actually know who you are and be confident in what you have to offer, and always show up as your best self, because there's so much power in showing up in that way that is authentic, and that is clear and real to who you are, because it is noticed. And when you do that, amazing things happen. You just meet amazing people, opportunities do find you. And so, yeah, I guess now I know that fear of, being afraid to show up and do the things that I want to do is a good thing. Because like you're saying, that's the hurdle, when you overcome the hurdle, and you just, take that courageous step, that is where growth comes from. That is where you develop your confidence. That's where you learn more about yourself and what you're capable of. And that's where you're really able to make an impact in the way that you want to make an impact on other people.
I love everything that you shared. It's so important for people to hear that. I think over 99% of people on the planet have some limiting belief around self-worth, or that I'm not important, or that I'm not good enough. And so we're all really going through the same thing, just in different heroes' journeys.
Yes.
And I love that you've been able to recognize that what's on the other side is so much more valuable than staying stuck where you are. And that's the thing about doing something courageous. It may not turn out as you anticipated on the other side, but there's always the opportunity to go, I did it. And I'm so proud of myself. And, in my experience, that's some of the times when I feel so alive and so excited because I did something that was really hard.
Yes. That's what life is about. That's the adventure of the whole journey. And it's not a one-time thing. You can experience it over and over and over again. It's just, learning to face it and learning that the fear isn't real.
Right. Exactly. It's all made up stuff in your mind. And the mind is so good at imagining all the different scenarios of the different ways things can go wrong.
Yes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Minds.
So Julie, you have shared so beautifully about who you are and what you do. And I also love that you teach what you need to learn and what you've been through. And that's one of the reasons why we go through challenges like that, is so that we can share with other people how to suffer less and how to expedite the experience of getting to the other side of that fear. So I'm sure that people are curious and want to know more. Where can they find you?
So right now I have my Facebook page and my Instagram where you can connect with me. Both the handle is Image by Julie. And I would love to hear from you, see you there. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So thank you for sharing those, that handle. I'll put the links in the description of the podcast, so you can easily click a button and reach out to Julie if you've got questions about Image, if you want to see what she's up to and her message and dive a little bit deeper. I encourage you to do that because, as she mentioned, it's not so much about it's not a superficial thing. It is about deep self-care, that confidence to express courageously who you are, and it even helps you overcome that hurdle. Like, people don't have to wonder so much. They can see who you are by how you choose to present yourself, and you don't have to do so much explaining, which is always nice.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. The first information anyone has of you is your visual presentation. So it's important.
Yes, so important. Well, Julie, thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom and your stories. I have really enjoyed this time together.
Thank you. I have as well.
Good. And for you listening, thank you for joining us. And you can give yourself a big pat on the back for being here and practicing some courageous self-care by tuning into the podcast. And if you are feeling like you have a message to share, it might be scary, but if that's showing up for you and you're feeling some tension around it, then please do apply to be a guest on the show. The more stories of courage and various self-care practices we hear, the better the world it will be. So you can make the application or fill out the application at ChristinaMarlette.com, and that link is also in the description. All right, Julie, thanks again.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Good. I'm so glad. And listeners, thank you for listening from all over the world. I'm so glad to connect with you in this way. I look forward to talking at you, because we don't get to talk together, but I'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye for now.